Hey Mavericks, welcome back to Ask a Maverick. So we got some questions. Becky from Texas says, we have our own cadaver lab in our university program. How's a Maverick cadaver lab any different or is it unique? That's a great question, first off, that you would think that a cadaver lab is a cadaver lab, but I know in most university settings, the cadavers you're working with or you've experienced in the past are going to be fully embalmed, full specimens, where now that tissue is very different. It's going to be dried out, it's going to be preserved, it's going to be kind of shrunk up. And so that specimen, if we wanted to look at it under ultrasound, is not going to look the same on ultrasound. You don't have the fluid content, so the muscles don't look the same, the tissues don't look the same. Certainly if you're trying to drive a needle in it, it's going to be trying to put a needle through your couch, okay? It's leather. It's not going to feel the same as doing an injection in a live human. Maverick has developed an embalming process through the University of North Texas Health Science Center anatomical lab that kept the cadavers very, very lifelike, meaning that their fluid content stays high so that the muscles stay hydrated, the tissues stay hydrated, so that as we put a needle in them, they still feel the same as that live human that has a heart beating. Now, what that does to us is we don't have as much what I call shelf life. That specimen will not be preserved for years or months, but that needle driving, that anatomy recognition, ultrasound scanning, the tissues, the skin, the muscles, the fascia, they are all as lifelike and as similar to the live human as possible. We don't want to create anything that we think is a simulation. We want you to do regional nerve blocks on humans. It just so happens the humans we're going to use in our lab have passed away, but they are replicating and almost exactly the tissue replication as one that is alive. So a big difference in our world. Another question from Texas. We've got some good people from Texas down here, okay? Amy says, why don't you provide medications and dosage recommendations for each of your blocks in the online didactic modules? One of the things that we have always really stressed in Maverick is that you got to think on your own. You can't use a recipe and a cookie cutter model of what to do every time. If I'm doing a median nerve block for a carpal tunnel release, that surgery is going to be over with in 15 minutes, and essentially the patient has very little pain following it. Why would I give that patient a 30-hour block, a 24, 30-hour block for that? I don't need that, and it increases their risk of neurotoxicity to do that. But let's say I'm doing a rotator cuff repair for an interscalene block. I'm doing interscalene for a rotator cuff repair. That interscalene is going to provide me 24, 36 hours. I want as long a duration for that injection, for that nerve block, because that rotator cuff repair is going to hurt like the devil for a long time. So we're going to try to get as long a duration as possible for that case in surgery. So we're promoting not a cookie cutter, do the same thing for every injection and just give you dosages and recommendations. We want you to think outside the box. We want you to think about your surgeon. How long does he or she take? What is the stimulation of that surgery when you're done with that surgery? What's going to be your post-op pain? What do you need out of that block? Do you need long duration? Do you need a really dense block for a few hours and then you need it to wear off so you can get motor strength back? Do you need sensory but no motor block? You know, when we're doing our knees now, we don't want FEM blocks. We don't want anything that would create a motor loss and create a weakness, because they're going to get that patient up walking that afternoon. So there's goals that you should be looking at, and you should tailor that block, your medication and your dosages to the needs of that patient and that block. Maybe I really want a long duration. I want to try to get 3 days. Well, there's no reason to use 0.5% Marcaine as your initial single shot. Put a catheter in. I only need about 3 hours. I want to dose that catheter when the patient's in recovery, so I know the catheter's working, so I can send them home with it with a working catheter. If I give them a 24-hour block with 0.5% Marcaine and Decadron and Presidex, now the patient's sitting at home 24 hours later. If the catheter's not working, now they're going to start hurting. They're going to have to come back to the hospital, going to have it reevaluated. Why wouldn't I do a really short-acting initial block so that I get 3 hours? The patient's in recovery after surgery. We dose catheter, they go pain-free. Now we send them home with what we know is a working, successful catheter placement, and they're not going to come back and they're not going to hurt. You see what I mean? So everything you do is going to be designed to what is your goals for that particular patient in that particular block. All right, Mark from Oklahoma, just a little further north. So how many blocks do you think you've performed in your career? Oh, wow. I do have a little bit of an estimate. I joined the Army in 2012. The Army asked me for a case log of what I had done, how many cases anesthetics I had performed. I came out in 1998, so I had been out 14 years at that time, almost 15 years. And I'd worked for one group that in time, so they had done all my billing for those 14 years. Over those 14 years, I was just past 20,000 anesthetics, and I had done over 10,000 nerve blocks at the 14-year mark. I would have to say that I've only ramped that up as the years have gone by, and from 14 to 24 over the next 10 years, I would just have to estimate that I've done at least equal to that. So probably something closer to 40,000 anesthetics and probably over 20,000 nerve blocks in my career. But that's an estimate. I don't know. Mark, again, from Oklahoma, if you could only perform one block for the rest of your life, what would it be? You know, that didn't even take much thought for me. Now working in the chronic pain world and having my own chronic pain clinic, the one injection that I see change lives on a daily basis, everything from stopping hot flashes from menopause to eliminating the symptoms of long COVID to erasing diabetic neuropathy, removing the pain of fibromyalgia, the fatigue of chronic fatigue syndrome, things that people have been disabled from for 20, 30 years, lives destroyed, devastated. This little sympathetic nerve block, stellate ganglion block, reverses it literally in a matter of minutes to hours. It is life-changing, borders on miracle for what we're seeing it change in the world today. So if there's one injection that I think I could keep doing, 20 times a day for the rest of my life, I think it would be a stellate ganglion block or a cervical sympathetic block. So obviously, it's a wonderful block. I think everyone should incorporate it into their world, into their repertoire. If that's something you think you want to do and you want to be a part of and you want to change lives, the stellate ganglion block or cervical sympathetic nerve block is taught in Chronic Pain 3. Love to see you there. Come out and learn some blocks with us. So we want to thank everybody for their questions. Enjoyed answering them. Hope you got something out of it, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Maverick course.